I saw a candelabrum that was entirely gold, with a ball on its top. Zechariah 4 to recite it as of Torah of Shabbos Chanukah. How precious is the sighing and moaning of a Jew, for it is the fulfillment of all imperfections. This is because through the concept of breath, which is the life spirit, the world was created, as the verse says, with God's word. The heavens were made, and with the wind of his mouth all their hosts. The renewal of the world will also be through the concept of spirit, as in send your spirit. They will be created, and you will renew the face of the earth. It is also the life force in man. For the life form of the wars in man is the breath, as in he blew into his nostrils a breath soul of life, and every creature in whose nostrils was a breath soul of the life spirit. And as the sages said, when there is no breath, there is no life. Hence the essential life force of all creatures is an aspect of spirits. And whenever there is some imperfection in something, that imperfection is mainly in the life force of that thing, which is an aspect of the life spirit of that thing, since that spirit is what sustains it. Now a sigh is a drawing out of the breath, an aspect of erech, literally he draws out his breath. Therefore when a person sighs over an imperfection, and draws out his breath, he is drawing the life spirit into that imperfection, for the imperfection is mainly a result of a withdrawal of the life spirit, and therefore a sigh fulfills the imperfection. But from where does one obtain this life spirit? No, the life spirit is mainly to be obtained from the tzaddik and rabbi of the generation, nanach, nachman, meuman. This is because the main life spirit is to be found in the Torah. As the verse says, the Spirit of God hovered above the waters, which refers to the Torah, and since the tzaddikim bind themselves to the Torah, nachman, meuman, therefore the life spirit is with them. Stick themselves to the Torah. Therefore the life spirit is with them. Only thus when a person who is bound to the tzaddik and rabbi of the generation, nachman, meuman, he sighs and draws out his breath. He draws in the life spirit from the tzaddik of the generation, nanach, nachman, meuman, who is bound to the Torah, in which is the spirit. This is why the tzaddik is called a man in whom is the spirit, someone who knows how to work with the spirit of each and every individual. As Rashi comments, therefore the tzaddik draws and fulfills the life spirit of each and every person. This is alluded to in the ruach tzfoinis, northern wind blew in David's harp, for David's harp had 5 strings, parallel to the 5 books of Moses, and the northern wind that blew in it is an aspect of the Spirit of God, hovered above the waters. This is because the ruach tzfoinis corresponds to the ruach tzofim, the hidden wind spirit in the heart of man, which is the life spirit, which is the life spirit. This is because the north is connected with imperfection, and imperfection is in the heart, as the verse says. He will grant your heart's desires, and may he grant you as in your heart. May God fulfill all your desires. Now the life spirit is mainly to be found in the heart. All limbs obey the heart like a king. As the verse says too, wherever the spirit goes. This is because the spirit is in the heart, and the imperfection is the withdrawal of the spirit from its place in the heart, which is why the imperfection is felt in the heart. Therefore, when the imperfection is fulfilled with the Spirit, the verse says, He will provide you with your heart's desires, and may God fulfill all your desires. Therefore, the Jewish people who receive the life spirit from the Torah are called tzufim. As the verse says, they plot secretly against you, against your people, and take counsel against seforim, your treasure. But from where the wicked, who speak arrogantly and scornfully against the tzaddik, nanach, nachman, meuman, receive the life spirit to fulfill imperfection, but no, there is a rav of the klipa, realm of evil, who is the category of Esav. As the verse says regarding Esav, I have rav. This corresponds to the princes of Esav, as the Targum that translates the rav revei of Esav, and to the rav of the klipa, from where the wicked obtain the spirit. However, this is a ruach spirit of impurity, a ruach sa'ara, a storm wind, as the verse says, behold, my brother Esav is the man of Sa'ir, and therefore their spirit is great. Oh yeah, and mighty for a short while, just like a storm wind, which is significant for its duration. Therefore he will blow away all his enemies, specifically blow, meaning that he will overcome them by way of the breath of his mouth, which is great for the moment, but has no endurance, and ultimately disappears, sweeping away his body and soul. Thus the verse says, he repays his enemies to their faces to destroy them. The Hebrew word for repay is mishalem, from the root of shalem, full, that is the fulfilling of imperfections that is drawn upon them, an aspect of God's erech patience. This is the meaning of to their faces, for the face is an aspect of the Spirit, as in the countenance of their faces testified against them, which refers to the nose, an aspect of the Spirit. As the verse says, he blew into his nostrils a breath, soul of life, in every creature, in whose nostrils was a breath, soul of the life spirit. But this is only to destroy them, for although it is great while it lasts, it ultimately disappears. This is an aspect of God is erech apayim, patient with the wicked, for the spirit of the breath is an aspect of erech apayim. This means that he draws out his breath, is patient, but collects his due in the end. For though this spirit is great and mighty while it lasts, an aspect of erech apayim, he eventually collects his due. Therefore the Jewish people are called afflicted and so'aro, stormy one, for they are now under the dominion of Esav, the man of Sa'ir, an aspect of the stormy wind. However, whoever is bound to the tzaddikim, nach, nachma, meuman, will receive the life spirit, the fulfillment of imperfection, from the tzaddik and rav of holiness. Nanach, nachma, meuman, therefore a wise man will atone for it. For imperfection is due to iniquities. As the sages say, there is no death without sin, and there is no suffering without iniquity. As in, I will mete out upon them their transgressions with a rod, and their sins with plagues. Therefore the tzaddik, nach, nachman, meuman, who draws the life spirit and fulfills perfection, atones for sin. This is out of the great compassion and mercy of God, who constricted himself so that the life spirit is with the tzaddik. Nanach, nachman, meuman, that is, that they receive the life spirit from the Torah, and they draw the life spirit into imperfection, and thereby atone for iniquities. This is an aspect of the 13 divine attributes: God, Almighty, merciful, compassionate, erech apayim. Erech apayim is an aspect of the Spirit that God draws out His breath, an aspect of the sighing over imperfection. Thus the verse continues, Rav Chesed v'Emes, abundantly kind and truthful, meaning, as we said, that the life spirit is received from the tzaddik and rav of holiness, who is a Rav Chesed, a rabbi of kindness. The opposite of Esav, the Rav of the Klipa, who is red-blooded, symbolizing the strictness of judgment. And this is truthful for the tzaddik, nach nachman, meuman, receives the life spirit from the torah, which is called the torah of truth, was in his mouth. And the verse continues, he recalls kindness for alafim, thousands of generations, an aspect of the halvai, princes of Esav. The Rav Rebbe Esav war, the Rav of the Klipo, the Rav of the Klipo. Thus he recalls kindness. For kindness, an aspect of the Rav of holiness, recalls and sweetens the aspect of the halvai Esav. Hence he bears iniquity and transgression, for by way of the life spirit, the fulfillment of imperfection that is drawn from the tzaddik. Nach nachman, nachman, meuman, by way of bezH, iniquities are atoned. Iniquities are atoned, which is an aspect of a wise man will atone for it, which is he bears iniquity and transgression. Now when one sighs, one draws the life spirit into the imperfection, sighing over it and fulfilling it. However, one should not incite the wicked. For if one were to incite the wicked, he would sigh and draw the spirit from the Rav of the Klipa, and this spirit of his is very strong for its duration. And this spirit of his is very strong for its duration, as said above. He will blow away all his enemies, and the wicked person would then be able to cause harm. Therefore, the average person should not incite the wicked, but only the perfect tzaddik, nanach, nachman, meuman. And one is considered a perfect tzaddik only when one is in the category of no evil will happen to the tzaddik. That is, that one has already banished and neutralized all of his evil to the point of being sure that he will not even stumble over some unintentional sin. To understand this, there are four basic elements: fire, wind, water, and earth. In their source above, they are the four letters of the divine name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. On earth, though, they are a complex of good and evil. However, the perfect tzaddik, nachman, meuman, who has completely differentiated and isolated the good from the evil, so that there remains in him not the slightest amount of evil from any of the four elements, which comprise the complete spectrum of character traits. He, being at this level, is allowed to incite the wicked. And to understand this, each wicked person must have some channel through which to receive his spirit in order to fulfill his imperfection. This channel is the path of specific negative character traits of the four elements which he drew upon himself and intensified. That is the path and channel through which he receives his life spirit to fulfill his imperfection. But when the tzaddik, nach nachman, meuman, wants to subdue him, he must descend to the negative character trait that the wicked person had empowered over himself in order to subdue it, so as to destroy the channel through which the wicked person receives his life spirit. Therefore, the tzaddik, nachman, meuman, must be a perfect tzaddik who has no evil, so that the power of the storm wind, which is the wicked person's life spirit, will not be able to overpower and harm this tzaddik, nachman, meuman, when he descends into the negative character trait of the wicked person to destroy it. For evil has absolutely no control over or grasp on the perfect tzaddik, nanach, nachman, meuman, and it has nowhere to hold on to him. The negative character trait itself into which he descends also has no grasp on him, and he only descends into it in order to subdue it. An aspect of Avram came up out of Egypt. Avram came up out of Egypt. This is mashpil rishoim adei uretz. He subdues the wicked to the earth. The acronym of which is Eish, Ruach, Mayim, Ofer, fire, wind, water, and earth, the four elements that represent the entire spectrum of character traits that need to be completely sorted out, so that evil have no hold upon any of the traits of the four elements. Only then is one a perfect tzaddik, and only then, after one has differentiated the evil of the four elements of fire, wind, water, and earth, can one be mashpil rishoim adei uretz. But an imperfect tzaddik, even though he has absolutely no sin, has not yet completely differentiated the evil, and the evil is still a potential. It's still a potential, therefore he cannot incite the wicked, for evil has where to grab onto him, and he may be harmed by the wicked one's drawn-out breath, which is mighty while it lasts, as with a storm wind. Regarding this, our sages said, it is permissible to incite the wicked in this world, but does not the verse say, don't contend with evildoers? That refers to someone who has a twinge of heart. Upon which Rashi comments, this refers to someone who is afraid of the sins in his hand. In his hand, meaning, as we said, that he actually has absolutely no sin, but he is afraid of the sins that are still in his hand. His potential to act out for the evil is still a potential, still, since he has yet not merited being in the category of no evil will happen to the tzaddik, and he is not yet assured that he will not err in some unintentional sin. That is why he must not incite the wicked. This is why do you remain silent when a wicked person swallows a tzaddik greater than himself, upon which the sages point out he swallows a tzaddik who is only greater than himself. Stressing swallow, since he literally sucks him in by the deep inhale of his breath, which is mighty for its duration. A perfect tzaddik, nanach, nachman, nachman, whoever he cannot swallow, for his heart does not twinge. I twinge him over and any errant sin, for he has already completely neutralized the evil of all the traits and desires of all the four elements. Therefore, this perfect tzaddik, nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman, and all his followers are allowed to incite the wicked. For this tzaddik, nach, nachman, meuman, can descend into all the channels of all their negative traits, which they had empowered over themselves, to crush and neutralize them, and thus is able to be now isolating, differentiating, and neutralizing the evil. Isolating, differentiating, and neutralizing the evil from the good are accomplished through torah and prayer. This Torah learning must be a delving into the depths of the halachic law, that is, to study the codes of Jewish law. This is because both the good and the evil have a grasp on the Torah, in that the Torah contains forbidden and permissible, impure and pure, fitting and unfitting, and as long as one has yet to clarify the law, one is a mixture of good and evil. Therefore, one is unable to isolate and eliminate the evil from the good, and is an aspect of one who seeks evil will be befallen by it, not until one has delved into and clarified the application of the halachic law, clarifying what is forbidden and what is permissible. By way of studying the codes is one able to isolate the good from the evil. But attaining the intelligence to be able to delve deeply into the halacha is only by way of prayer. For intelligence is drawn from prayer. The reason for this is, as stated in the Zohar, the garden refers to the Torah. For the Torah is called a garden, and the Jewish souls that delve into and understand the Torah are an aspect of the grass and greens that grow in the garden. But from where do they grow? From the spring, from wisdom, as the verse says, a spring in the garden. And from where do they receive the wisdom and intelligence, which are an aspect of the spring? From prayer, as in a spring emerges from the house of God, which refers to prayer, as in my house is a house of prayer. This is an aspect of actualizing a potential. For prayer is an aspect of the renewal of the world, since prayer assumes the faith that there is a creator who can do as he wills and change nature, which is an aspect of potential creation, as in he made them all with wisdom, which is an aspect of the prayer, from which the spring of wisdom emerges. The Torah itself, though, is an aspect of actualized creation, as in I had been with him as an omaaiiinnn. I had been with him as an omaaiiinnn, from the same root as meuman. From the same root as meuman. or even the same root as meuman, meaning a craftsman, since the world was created with the torah. Thus, when one prays for something, it is an aspect of the renewal of the world, an aspect of potential creation, an aspect of the arousal of the wisdom. In that prayer, as said above, a spring emerges from the house of God, which refers to prayer, for that is where wisdom is aroused. From where the spring, the wisdom is drawn into the torah, where it is actualized. As the verse says, from his mouth knowledge and understanding, for the revelation of wisdom is in the torah, by way of which the spring of the garden comes into being. For the spring waters the garden, which causes the grass and greens to grow. This is what our sages meant by one who assesses his prayer will have a heartache, as the verse says, extended anticipation makes the heart ill. What should one do? Study the Torah, as the verse concludes. The tree of life will make desire come. As we said in prayer, things are still only in potential and have yet to be actualized. Only when this is brought into the Torah, which is an aspect of actualized creation, is one's request fulfilled by way of the potential being actualized. This is alluded to in the verse, a river emerges from Eden to water the garden, and from there it splits and becomes 4 river heads. Eden is an aspect of prayer. For regarding Eden, the verse says, no eye has ever seen it, which as the sages say refers to prayer, which is beyond nature, for prayer changes nature, which is an aspect of no eye has ever seen it, since we have no concept of what is beyond nature. And this is a river emerges from Eden, that is from prayer as above. A spring emerges from the house of God to water the garden, is the Torah, as in a spring of gardens. And when the spring of wisdom is drawn from prayer into the garden, and when the spring of wisdom is drawn from prayer into the garden, which is the Torah, then the grass and the greens, which are the Jewish souls, can grow. This means that they grow in the garden. This means that they grow in the garden, understanding the Torah and becoming enlightened by it, that one merits delving deeply into the halacha, to clarify the laws, the forbidden and the permissible, the pure, etc., and thus isolates the good from the evil. This then is from it splits. For the evil of the 4 elements is thus separated off, and only good is left. Then it becomes 4 river heads, which represents the 4 letters of the divine name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which are the source of good within the 4 elements. This is the concept of the 4 tzitzis, for the 4 tzitzis are an aspect of the life spirit, as in, thus says God, from the 4 directions come, O Spirit. Thus says God, from the 4 directions come, O Spirit. Through them one can subdue the ruach sa'ara, storm wind, which is the spirit of those who oppose the true tzaddikim. Nanach, nachma, meuman, the drawn out breath that they draw from the rav of the klipa, which is an aspect of ace of the man of sa'ir, hair. Therefore the word tzitzis also means hair, as in he grabbed me by the spirit, the tzitzis of my head, for the tzitzis subdue asa. The man of sa'ir, hair, corresponding to the ruach sa'ara, storm wind. And this is the concept of the white talus in which God wrapped himself to reveal the 13 divine attributes. The 13 divine attributes correspond to the holy life spirit, which corresponds to the talus, which has 4 corners, an aspect of the wind that comes from the 4 directions. And that is why the talit is white, in contrast to the spirit of the klipa, represented by Esav, who is reddish, completely covered with hair like a fur coat. As Rashi comments there, like a talus, the talus of the klipa, represented by a red talus, from where the spirit of the wicked is drawn, but by way of the talus of holiness. represented by white talis, from where the Holy Life Spirit is drawn, which corresponds to the 13 divine attributes of mercy. It can be subdued. Therefore God wrapped himself specifically in a white talis when he revealed to Moses the 13 divine attributes of mercy. It says by way of the talis of holiness, which is an aspect of the makif, that which surrounds, which is represented by the life spirit, as in the wind goes round and round. The talis of the klipa, the spirit of the klipa, is subdued. This is alluded to in the verse, to grab hold of the corners of the earth and have the wicked shaken from it. For by way of the four corners, which represent the four-cornered talis, which correspond to the life spirit of holiness, the four riverheads, the wicked can be shaken off, an aspect of mashpil rishuim aliyuretz, the acronym of which represents eish ruach mayim ofim. And this is the meaning of what Rabbi Baba Chana said. A certain merchant told me, "Come and I will show you those who died in the wilderness." I went and I saw them, and they looked as if they were drunk. They were lying on their backs, and the knee of one of them was raised. A merchant went along underneath his knee, and though he was riding camelback and holding a spear, he did not touch him. I cut off a corner of the talis of one of them, and we were unable to continue traveling. The merchant asked me, "Maybe you took something from them." There is a tradition that whoever takes something from them is unable to move on. So I went and returned it, and then we were able to move on. Come and I will show you those who died in the wilderness. Refers to the wicked who are not bound to the tzaddikim. Nach, nachman, meuman. They are called those who died in the wilderness, because the ruach northern wind did not blow in the wilderness. This is the life spirit of holiness, which corresponds to the ruach that blew in David's harp. These wicked people who were not bound to the tzaddikim, nach, nachman, had no spirit of holiness, and therefore they are called dead. He showed him how they attain fulfillment for their imperfections. And this is what he showed them. They looked like they were drunk, that is, from wine which is red. And as with the vase of the red one, who was the Rav of the Klipa, from where the wicked received their life spirit to fulfill their imperfections. Thus they were lying on their backs, that is, with their faces up. Their faces is an aspect of the spirit, as said earlier. The countenance of their faces, etc. Up, because their spirit is very great for the while, and their subsequent success ascends high, as in he will blow away all his enemies. The knee of one of them was raised, refers to the great success of the wicked. For a lack of success is called faltering knees, and a raised knee means the peak of success. A merchant went along underneath, refers to the tzaddik, nanach, nachman, who is called a merchant. As the Rashbam explains wherever the term appears in Ishmaelite, soiche, the Aramaic root means round, is an aspect of the spirit, as in round and round goes the spirit, which is the tzaddik who receives the spirit of holiness. And he is called an Ishmaelite, soiche, because the name Ishmael symbolizes that God, Shoma, has heard your affliction. This is because the tzaddik hears all the sighs of those who bind themselves to him. For the source of life of each of them is through him, for he is a man with spirit. He was riding camelback, corresponds to a kind man, his goimel, beneficent to himself. An aspect of Rav Chesed, abundantly kind, holding a roimach spear, alludes to ruach mem, to the ruach of God hovered above. The ma'im, which is the torah, the source of the life spirit, which was given after mem 40 days. In other words, though the tzaddik, nach, nachman, possessed the spirit that he had received from the torah, he nevertheless went underneath his knee, that is, underneath the success of the wicked, as in when a wicked person swallows a tzaddik greater than himself. I cut off a corner of the talis of one of them, means that he cut off and broke the negative character trait of one of the four elements that the wicked person had empowered over and drawn upon himself, this being the wicked person's channel. This was symbolically shown by the cutting off of one of the tzitzis, representing the cutting off of and breaking the negative character trait that was their channel. Since all negative character traits are drawn from the four elements which are sourced in the four tzitzis, we were unable to move on. That is, he was nevertheless unable to subdue the wicked person and escape from under the influence of his needs, even though he had cut off and broken the negative character trait of the wicked person that is drawn from the four elements that are sourced in the four tzitzis, symbolized by having cut off the corner of the talus. Nevertheless, he was unable to subdue the wicked person and escape from under the influence of his needs. The merchant asked me, maybe you took something from them. This means maybe you have yet to fully rectify one of the four elements. This means maybe you have yet to fully This means maybe you have yet to fully rectify one of the four elements by completely differentiating its evil within you. That would explain why we cannot travel, since as long as one still possesses even the slightest attachment to the evil of any of negative character traits, one is unable to subdue the wicked. Maybe you took something from them. This means maybe you took for yourself some negative character trait or desire that belongs to the realm of evil, which is why we are unable to get away from them. There is a tradition that whoever takes something from them is unable to move on. It means as above, that if one takes for oneself any desire or other negative character traits, or the negative character traits that belong to the wicked, meaning that one is still attached to some degree to the negative character traits. One is unable to escape their influence and subdue them. So I went and returned it, means that I released whatever little attachment of evil I still possessed to any of their negative character traits. I returned and isolated it within me. Then we were able to move on, for then we were able to escape from under the influence of his needs, to subdue and humble him. For as said, the perfect tzaddik, nach nachman, one who isolates from within himself, any and all attachment to their evil, is able to escape their influence, and to subdue and humble them, as in, he subdues the wicked to the earth to sin. I saw a golden candelabrum that was entirely gold, which refers to the Torah, which is more precious than gold, which is a bowl with a bowl on its top, means, as Rashi comments, a spring, a reference to the spring that emerges from the house of God, which is prayer. Its 7 candles are the souls that grow in the garden, which are divided into 7 categories. 7 pipes to each of the 7 lamps are the 49 lights, which is the hidden light of the future, alluded to in no eye has ever seen it, corresponding to prayer. Near it are 2 olive oils. Yet, as Rashi explains, being a reference to the tree of life and the tree of death, that is good and evil, that's one on the right and one on the left, as in from there it splits, that the evil is separated from the good, this to the right and that to the left. I asked the angel, what are these? And he answered, etc., not with strength and not with force, but with my spirit. That is the aspect of the life spirit, of thus God, says God, from the 4 directions. For by way of Torah and prayer, by way of which one distinguishes between good and evil, which is an aspect of the entire vision of the candelabrum, one attains the life spirit and fulfills any imperfections. Not with strength and not with force, but with my spirit, says the Lord of hosts. Who are you, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? Become a level ground, is in the context of Zerubbabel being the tzaddik, nach nachman, meuman of that generation, against whom several wicked people arose to disrupt his spiritual efforts. Regarding this, the verse says, not with strength and not with force, but with my spirit, that by way of the perfect tzaddik, drawing the life spirit, he will be able to subdue and overcome all enemies, as in, who are you, O great mountain, before Zerubbabel? Become level ground, meaning that all obstacles standing in his way, like a mountain, will all turn to naught by way of the life spirit. It was explained above that the life spirit is in the torah. I alluded to when the Spirit of God hovered above the waters. Therefore in Egypt, before Torah giving, at which time there was the way to receive the life spirit, the people are said to have been short-breathed, for they did not have from where to receive the life spirit, which is an aspect of erech apayim, a drawing out of the breath. Therefore they were short breath, which is the opposite of erech apayim, a drawn out breath, an aspect of the life spirit that is drawn by way of a sigh, to fulfill imperfection, for the spirit is the fulfillment of imperfection, as in, he will give you your heart's desires, and open your mouth and I will fill it, which is the fulfillment of the imperfection. This corresponds to the vow oy melofim, oy mulaipim, oy melofim, mulaipim. Fill the mouth. The vow melofim is written as a vav with a dot, a yud in the middle, representing the 10 yud types of pulse, paralleling the 10 commandments. Nanach, nachma, nachman, meuman. The pulse is caused by the spirit, which is why there are 10 types of pulse. Paralleling the 10 commandments from the spirit of the pulse is in the Torah. And above is the aspect of the drawing of the spirits. Hence, melofim, moleipin, for my drawing the spirit. Imperfections are filled, an aspect of open your mouth and I will fill it. Referring to the imperfection, thus, melofim, moleipin, fill the mouth. This is why the verse connects. I am God your Lord, who raised you out of the land of Egypt, after which they received the Torah, in which is the spirit with, open your mouth and I will fill it. Alluded to in the melofim, the fulfillment of imperfection, for only after the exodus from Egypt, as in, who raised you out of the land of Egypt, when the shortness of breath came to an end. For they received the Torah, in which is the life spirit. Can there be? Open your mouth and I will fill it. Representing the fulfillment of imperfection. The melofim as in, may God fill all your desires. Therefore the exodus from Egypt is mentioned in the section of tzitzis. For the tzitzis are corresponded to the life spirit, to the 4 directions, corners. The rebbe also spoke at this time about the 12 hours of the day and the 12 of the night, nach, nachma, nachman, which embody the 24 transmutations of the divine name. It gave off K, a different one for each hour of the day, and each hour is divided into 1,080 parts, and each of the 1,080 parts embodies the specific transmutation of the name for that hour, all of which correspond to the life spirit in the pulse. I did not merit hearing this issue clearly, and I also forgot part of it, but the intelligent will understand. Nach, nachman, meuman. God's chariots are 20,000, and halvai shinan, thousands of angels. God's chariots are 20,000, and halvai shinan, thousands of angels. Halvai represents the alufei Esav, but by way of God's chariots are 20,000, corresponding to the Torah, from which is drawn the life spirit by the rabbis of holiness. Nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman. The halvai become shinan, upon which the sages comment, don't read shinan but she'enon, which means they are no more. In other words, by receiving the Torah, from where is drawn the spirit of the Rav of holiness. Nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman. The alufei Esav, the princess of Esav, An aspect of the Rav of the Klipa are subdued and rendered as not, as alfei she'enon. From the corners of the earth, we heard songs, glory to the tzaddik, and I said, I have a secret, I have a secret. Woe is me, traitors have betrayed, traitors have treacherously betrayed. From the corners of the earth represents the corners of the tzitzis, wherein is the life spirit corresponding to David's harp, which played music by the northern wind blowing through it. This was because music and song are drawn from the life spirit in the wings of the lungs. This was because music and song are drawn from the life spirit in the wings of the lungs. Thus we heard songs. An aspect of the music made by David's harp, which represents the life spirit, which corresponds to the corners of the tzitzis, to the corners of the earth. In this way we subdue the wicked, as in to grab hold of the corners of the earth and have the wicked shaken from it. Glory to the tzaddik, as Rashi explains, means that the status of the tzaddikim, nachma, meuman, is destined to be elevated, since as said, by way of the life spirits, they are able to overcome the wicked. And thus I said, I have a secret, I have a secret. Woe is me. Means, as Rashi explains, the two secrets were revealed to him. That two secrets were revealed to him. The secret of suffering and the secret of salvation. But since the salvation is far off, that was why the prophet cried out, woe is me. This was because the spirit of the wicked person is mighty while it lasts, as the storm wind, which gives rise to all the Jewish people's distress and the lengthening of the exile. Traitors have betrayed, traitors have treacherously betrayed. Boigdim begadu, begid boigdim begadu. Salutes that the cause of betrayal, begido, is a blemish in clothing, begid, that is, an imperfection in the tzitzis, which are at the corners of the garment. Or in other words, a blemish in the four elements, which are connected with and whose higher source is represented by the four tzitzis. But ultimately, as the verse concludes, terror, pit and trap are upon you. Terror, 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 pit and trap are upon you. Pit and trap are upon you, inhabitants of the earth, for all the wicked will bow and fall. Since evil will ultimately perish, because the perfect tzaddikim, nach meuman, will subdue and humble the wicked to the earth by way of their life spirit, corresponding to the tzitzis, as in from the corners of the earth we heard songs. David's harp of 5 strings corresponds to the torah. As said, those who hold onto the torah are the ones who hold on to the harp. The lung has 5 sections. The life spirit is in the lungs, and the breath of a sigh is drawn from there, as is evident. Therefore the lung has 5 sections, paralleling the 5 books of Moses, the 5 strings of David's harp, wherein is the life spirit. The 5 knots of the tzitzis parallel the 5 strings. The 5 knots of the tzitzis parallel the 5 strings of David's harp. Lesson number 9, the Rebbe's own words. They were covered by deeps. They sank to the bottoms like a rock. The life force is attained mainly from prayer, as the verse says, prayer to God is my life. For this reason, one must pray with all one's effort, for when one prays with all one's effort and puts all one's energy into the letters of the prayer, one's energy is renewed there, as in renewed each morning. Great is your faithfulness, for faith is a prayer, as in his hands were faith. As the Targum translates, his hands were spread in prayer. Nanach, nachman, nachman, meuman.